Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today are brought to you by our title sponsor, Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. We're just waiting on Vegas Golden Knights GM Kelly McCrimmon, so we'll do some business right now. March 19th and 26th, Able Auctions will sell the contents of 2 precision machine shops, 7 CNC lathes, including bar feed, 8 CNC mills with pallet switchers, hundreds of pieces of tooling, manual equipment, and a whole lot more. Both shops have exceptionally well-maintained equipment. For information on these 2 precision machine shop closure auctions, go to ableauctions.ca to get your machine shop or manufacturing plant or any business sold at auction. Email sales at ableauctions.ca. That's sales at ableauctions.ca. Nothing from Kelly yet? Okay, so we're just waiting on Kelly McCrimmon. Knights right now 65 games. They're in the 35 wins, second wild card spot in the West, and we talked about it earlier that we're the playoffs to begin today, and this has been the case for the last week or so. It was Nashville versus the Canucks, but it would be Vegas and the Canucks in round 1. There's your reward for maybe finishing first overall in the West. You get the defending Stanley Cup champions.
Well.
In the first round.
And they met in the bubble, Donnie, 2-17. They met in the bubble, and it was a 7-game series thanks to
2020.
Demko. Yeah, 2020, thanks to Demko.
Yeah, and will Vegas have Mark Stone back and Thomas Hertl? All sorts of questions to ask Kelly. Okay, Connor Bedard last night. I don't know if you caught what he was up to. Beautiful goal, 1 goal, 4 assists against Anaheim. He has the 5 points yesterday, 8 points in 2 games. He's one of only 5 players in NHL history to collect 5 points in 1 game as an 18-year-old.
Love that kid.
I was going to go through the list, but we won't because we understand Kelly's going to join us now. Vegas Golden Knights GM Kelly McCrimmon, good friend of the show. He joins us now. Kelly, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Good. Very well. Overtime win, Vegas over the Kraken last night in Seattle. We all watched. Outstanding entertainment. Is 2 straight wins after a tough stretch. Is this team close to playing the type of hockey you want it to play, Kelly?
I think we've got a long ways to go, but we really try to use the deadline as a little bit of an opportunity to turn the page. We had struggled going into the deadline for a variety of reasons, but big win against Detroit on home ice. Obviously, a real big win last night, coming from behind, scoring with the goalie out, and then winning in overtime. So hopefully we can begin to get some traction, because that's what it's all about, is trying to get your game to the level it'll need to be at to get into the playoffs and then playoff time.
As always, Kelly, no messing around when it comes to trying to improve your hockey team. Mantha, Hanifin, Hertl, you add just before the deadline. What are they going to add?
Well, we were looking for a veteran forward really all year. We thought that was an area where we could improve our team. We returned our entire team with the exception of Riley Smith, who was traded to Pittsburgh and to enable us to retain Aiden Hill. And Ivan Barbashev. So, our pro staff do a great job at, identifying the players that we should be interested in. And Anthony Mantha was the guy that we, sort of in that range of player, was the guy that we were most interested in. We made that trade earlier in the week. There'd been sort of a dry spell of trades, and then we made that trade, I believe, on the Tuesday of deadline week. So, in his case, size and skill, he's got 20 goals this year, and I think that he'll complement what we have, and he's motivated, being in a contract year himself. So that was the thought process there. Noah Hanifin is a really good NHL defenseman. He's a top pair defenseman on anybody's team, or a second pair defenseman on anybody's team. Real good skater. I think is going to really help our team here immediately. He already has in the games that he's played. He's an expiring contract as well. We'll hope to have discussions with his representative, Pat Brisson, about an extension. And then, Thomas Hurdle was the deal we likely worked on the longest. It was the final one to be completed, and likely speaks to the regard we've had for the player during his time in San Jose. He's been a great player there. He's played extremely well against us, and we just worked at that because it was a situation where Thomas's timeline likely lined up a little bit better with our timeline than San Jose's, and that's sort of where the conversations began. And then there was a lot of different layers to it based on everything involved with the salary retention, with ownership, with their business side, because Thomas is a real big part of that organization and the community. So all of those things that were part of the discussions leading up to Thomas himself waiving his no move to come to Vegas. All of those things took time.
All right, Kelly, you know what's coming. I've heard you in other interviews. Thomas Hurdle injured, Mark Stone on LTIR. How do you react to the criticism your team receives when it comes to the Knights' use of LTIR?
Well, I just did an interview. Was asked the same question, and I guess I can sort of go through quickly.
Yep.
The rationale. It's collectively bargained. I think some people feel that next week at the GM's meetings we can change it if we want. Well, we can't. It's collectively bargained between the Players Association and the NHL. And I think what you've seen, I go back. It's literally the anniversary, the 4-year anniversary of the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, the salary cap was a flat cap for 4 years after a period of time where, it had gone up 3 or 4% a year, which, over 3 or 4 years makes a big difference. So I think you saw, it was a good time to be a bad team and a bad time to be a good team in terms of trying to build your team, because what happens is your restricted free agents, they come out of their entry-level contracts, or they come off an RFA year where they now have arbitration rights. Those are really important players in terms of the age of the player, and they earn more money. So there was the pie wasn't getting any bigger, and it was just more and more challenging to try to be a contending team. And I think you started to see brokered trades that teams make now, effectively are, they're allowing a team to be over the $83.5 million cap. If you trade for an $8 million player and the trading team retains 50% and it's run through a broker, you're putting a player, an $8 million player onto your roster at $2 million. Well, I think people understand that. More teams are doing that. It's become more common. It's become more common because of just the challenge of having a good team with a flat cap. And I mentioned the RFAs that take more money. And if you're a team that has any dead money on your books, I think that makes it extra challenging. So long backstory, I guess, on sort of the challenges of having a real good team. LTIR is designed to allow teams to replace players in their lineup if they're going to be injured for 10 games or 10 games and 24 days. And you saw, I think, upward of 20 teams this year that have been in LTI, not just the Vegas Golden Knights. I think it's been pretty common across the NHL. And what it does in season is it allows a team to manage their roster a little more effectively or easily. When you're a team, for example, it might be on a 21-man roster. LTI lets you, get to 22-man, or it gives you a little more flexibility as to who can be called up, those types of things. So that's some of the reason the teams go into LTI in season. From there, it depends on the timing of when your injuries come. We had Shea Theodore missed almost 40 games with a back injury. It was right after U.S. Thanksgiving. We knew that he'd be coming back. So you have his space to help manage your roster and your call-ups more effectively. But when you know he's coming back, you're not going to be able to replace him in your lineup. And in the case of Mark Stone, which is the player you're asking about, he Had a collision in our game against Nashville. It wasn't a violent hit. I don't think they even meant to hit each other, period. It was more of a collision, the two guys trying to get out of the way. And he had a serious injury to his spleen. And, from there, we were a little bit unsure as to when he'll return. And I don't think that anybody really knows, quite frankly. It's going to be a matter of continually doing CT scans to monitor the health of his spleen. You can't return to play if your spleen is almost back to full health. It's got to be 100% healed before you can play. And last year his injury came, I think, on the 12th of January. He tried to rehab. He'd had surgery too the year before on his back. Made it through till January, I think 12th last season. He injured his back, had to have a different back surgery, one that was a little more complicated. He first tried to rehab it for the last 2 weeks of January. He had another setback during his rehab. Really left with no choice but to do the surgery. Did the surgery, and because of the uniqueness of it, we weren't really sure when he would return. He was able to return in the playoffs, and I think it took him, a while to get going. I don't know if I say he started in full health, but he was able to get his feet underneath him, and obviously, is a heart and soul player for our team. So the circumstances that have presented themselves this year with Mark's injury give us the flexibility to replace him because he's going to be out for the balance of the regular season at a minimum. And that's, sort of what gave us the ability to do more than we might have otherwise.
If the playoffs started today, the Canucks would play Vegas. Kelly, your thoughts on Vancouver? No one saw this season coming here, especially here in Vancouver, Kelly, number one in the Western Conference.
Well, it's interesting. I've always liked their players, and I go right back to when we played in the bubble in Edmonton. And you just go through the lineup and you circle a guy. Yeah, like that guy, like that guy, like that guy. And, I think the difference is this year, Rick Tocchet has done a really, really good job. Jim and Patrick have done a great job in terms of strengthening the lineup. And I know, in addition of Teddy Bluger, we had Teddy. And, of course, Jim and Patrick had him in Pittsburgh prior. A really effective player, a good ad for them. The goalie's been healthy. Demko has been healthy. He's played exceptionally well. And they've got some really good players. So I can't say I'm surprised. I guess I'm surprised like I was surprised last year at how good Boston was, for example. Did you see a team getting 135 points? No, you didn't. You knew they were a good team. Well, I expected Vancouver to be a really good team. And, they've been all of that. They've been at or near the top of the NHL standings all season.
One of my favorite players on your team is Jonathan Marchessault. Kelly, clutch goals. Got one in Seattle last night, 17 seconds left, 37 goals, 50 goals in his last 80 games. Boy, is he fun to watch. He really is. Yeah,
it's interesting. Just the first thought for me all the time when somebody asks me about Jonathan Marchessault is he sees his big moments. And, last year in the playoffs, the number of big goals he scored, but even I just finished answering the question in an earlier interview. The year we lost to San Jose in 7 games, we were up 3-0, I think 11 minutes in or 9 minutes into the third period. We got the major penalty. San Jose scored 4 times. It just literally couldn't have sucked the life out of us more. And yet who tied the game up to get it to overtime? Jonathan Marchessault. That's just kind of his makeup. And, I know the year we beat Colorado in 6 games, which would have been that following year. We lost game 1 in Colorado quite badly. We lost game 2 in overtime, and we trailed in game 3 in the third period by 2 goals. And who scores? It's Jonathan Marchessault. He just has always had a knack, and I think it sort of lines up with his DNA because he's had to prove people wrong his entire career, and it just gives him just a competitiveness and willingness to do anything to win that you hardly see anyone do at a higher level in terms of that part of the game. So good for Marshy last night, just the most recent example. which is a big point. I mean, we're trying to make the playoffs, so Seattle's a team right behind us. So, it allowed us to come out of there with one more point than them. So that was a huge goal for us.
Okay, Kelly, we're going to get you on before that first-round playoff series, before the Knights and Canucks. We'll ask you more about LTIR then, okay?
Yeah, I should mention you. I didn't mention in my answer. Thomas Hertl, we hope will play the last couple of weeks of the season is the plan there. So, there's I think NHL general managers understand the rule. I think that it's obviously widely discussed by fans and media, but we did the best we could with the circumstances we were dealing with.
Kelly, thanks for this. We'll get you back on. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
You bet.